Hey, what is up everybody? This is Steve Breach coming to you here with a review of the 2006 Royal Rumble. I actually honestly popped this Rumble on the WWE Network for the one reason it is probably one of my least favorite Royal Rumbles. I'm not quite sure if it is because of having to relive 2006 in WWE, which was the rise of Rey Mysterio, who was a very, very popular wrestler in 2006. Although he would, sort of gain more popularity after he held the World Heavyweight Championship that he would win at WrestleMania 32. No, I apologize. WrestleMania 22. I apologize. Around 2010 until the time that he left, his popularity just kept rising and rising. But I'm not quite sure if it's just the way that it was booked for him to win the Royal Rumble, as well as go on to WrestleMania and beat Randy Orton and Kurt Angle for the World Heavyweight Championship. And then after winning the championship, sort of booked like he was a mid-card nobody who would always keep the championship but just totally get his ass handed to him by guys like Great Khali or Sabu, or just never really getting a win. Just always, getting beat up and the other guy gets disqualified, or like it was at the Extreme Rules show against Sabu, a really awesome match with an awesome finish, but the match is Extreme Rules and the match is thrown out because both guys are just hurt from jumping out of the ring. The stuff like that just didn't make any sense. And to me, that's one of the reasons for them exploiting the death of Eddie Guerrero for Rey Mysterio to win the Royal Rumble. That's one of the reasons why I think 2006 is one of the worst years in WWE as far as the SmackDown brand. And just with that being one of the main feuds of that year, making it one of the worst. The 2006 Royal Rumble starts out with Triple H as well as Rey Mysterio coming out as number 1 and number 2. I knew as a fan watching the show back in the day, that was a really big surprise because if you were to ask around, there was a Wrestling Observer. I was not a subscriber. I didn't even really follow what the Wrestling Observer was until like 2011. So that wasn't out there, but I used to always go to a site called WrestlingHeadlines.com. That's where I would go before Wrestling Observer or before NoDQ.com. I'm sure it's still around. I think it was called Lords of Pain or something like that as well. But that was the site that I always went to, and basically 9 out of 10 rumors would say Triple H was going to win the Royal Rumble, and 1 out of 10 basically said that Rey Mysterio was the other guy that was going to win it. Looking at what was going on in WWE in the time, this is probably one of the most Rumbles that had the most nothing going on. There was really no storylines tying into the Rumble. If you go back to last year, even the last few years, there's basically been only a handful of guys that you thought really had a chance to win the Rumble. Some years you just know it's going to be that guy, and that's the way it's going to be. Last year we had Randy Orton was the guy that people were saying was going to win the Rumble, and I was making excuses that every other guy out there was going to win it because of the fact I didn't want him to win it. But really nothing goes on in this Rumble for the longest time. Triple H and Rey Mysterio fight to start this out. Simon Dean comes out as number 3. Triple H and Rey Mysterio make it really quick, just toss out from them. And then really we just get the ring filling up with guys from here. Psychosis comes out at number 4. Triple H's big time rival Ric Flair comes running down at number 5. He doesn't really last that long before Triple H throws him out. Big Show comes into the ring, sort of beats everybody up. And honestly, at this very moment is when Rey Mysterio starts hiding in the corner throughout the whole thing. And that's why people say that, Rey Mysterio lasted 1 hour and 2 minutes. And I'm not quite sure if that still is the longest anyone's ever been in a Royal Rumble, or if somebody's lasted longer, maybe the year that they had 40 people in it. But he didn't really do any damage. He really didn't do any offense. He just sort of was always in the Rumble, tied up in the ropes, or just laid out in the corner like he was beat up. But Big Show comes in, lays those guys out. Jonathan Coachman comes running out at number 7. He doesn't really last long in here. Number 8 becomes the first guy to make you sort of stand back and be like, whoa, this guy's got a shot. And that's Bobby Lashley, who was fresh coming onto the scene at that time as a member of SmackDown. This was, of course, before his run of becoming ECW champion and feuding with Vince McMahon, going up against Umaga at WrestleMania. So, this guy was coming out to have a good year. He only lasted 4 minutes before being taken out by the next guy, Kane, and his tag team partner at the time, Big Show. Joined in the ring by Sullivan, who was the model turned wrestler that was on the SmackDown brand. He didn't last long. There we go. Carlito, Chris Benoit, Booker T, Joey Mercury, Tatanka. Number 16 ends up being Johnny Nitro, who comes together forming Eminem with Joey Mercury. And it was pretty cool because when Nitro came out, he started to do his big time pose that he would always do, but then Molina came up and tapped him from behind because Mercury was about to get eliminated in there, and he went sprinting down to break that up and make sure that his boy was going to stay in there, so Eminem would still have the strong 2-on-1 advantage against anybody they were fighting in there, because at the end, it's every man for themselves, but if you band together, you'll figure that out once you get down to the end. From there we go, Trevor Murdoch, Eugene, Road Warrior Animal, were joined by Rob Van Dam. I think that 2006 was the year that Rob Van Dam was a surprise. I don't think he was in WWE at that time. I thought he was on a leave of absence, but I could be wrong. That might have been another year when he came out, because Rob Van Dam, although he always was sort of like a real big fan favorite in WWE. When he came running down, he got a really, really good response here. So to me, it sort of felt like this was something we hadn't seen in a while. After him was Orlando Jordan, Chavo Guerrero, Matt Hardy, Super Crazy, and then at number 25 ended up being Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels came out with a fistful of fury. He was looking to main event WrestleMania. He was just trying to find himself a good spot. At this time, there was no DX. Him and Triple H were at odds against each other. He was just always that guy that went out there pay-per-view after pay-per-view. Didn't really matter who he was going to be going up against. He just always had one of the matches of the night that anybody going out there had to top. He didn't really have a storyline going into it, but something was starting between him and Vince McMahon. Followed by there was number 26, Chris Masters, then Viscera, Shelton Benjamin. Goldust was a return surprise at number 29. And then Randy Orton came out at number 30. After Randy had hit the ring, we basically were down to the guys fighting out in the ring. And then without an entrance, Vince McMahon came out of the back and stood at the top of the ramp, basically getting Shawn Michaels' attention. And from there, basically, he was going to be attacked by Triple H. But Shawn at the last minute saw Triple H, gave him the sweet chin music, knocking him out. But then was eliminated by a Shane McMahon run-in, tossing him over the top rope, eliminating himself. From here, basically, it fought down to Triple H and Rey Mysterio as the last two guys in the ring before Rey was able to toss him over the top. Basically, Rey wins from the number 2 slot, and that is the first time that anyone's ever done that since Vince in the 1999 Royal Rumble, what started out with Vince and with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Honestly, other than, Mysterio breaking the record for lasting an hour and 2 minutes in the match, this to me is one of the most lackluster Royal Rumbles they've had. If I was you, I'd watch any other Rumble that there's ever been. My favorites will always be the ones from like the early 90s that Hogan would win, or the 92 one that Flair would win. Those ones are just packed with so many superstars. The Hall of Famers, guys that aren't really with us anymore, and the guys from my childhood that give me good memories. I don't have anything against, the Rumbles from like 2009, 10, 11, 12, from then on. Those ones have been, pretty good. But for some reason, this one, 2006, is in a bad spot, and it's just not one of my favorites. Ray gets the win, would go on to WrestleMania. He'd win the World Heavyweight Championship. Of course, the next month is when they sort of tie things in between Rey Mysterio and Randy Orton, which then gets Orton added into the WrestleMania match himself. And Mysterio still pulls it out. But his run with the championship is very forgettable. He would go on to have a better run with the championship. He actually had another run with the championship where he lost the belt the same night he won it after he beat The Miz. So we'll see what happens. But 2006 Rumble, not one of my favorites.